He was clearly a billionaire CEO, but chose to disguise himself as a disabled person, with an obstinacy in his heart that even he couldn't explain. This unusual behavior stemmed entirely from his recently deceased mother. One day, he came to his late mother's room, where the air still carried traces of her scent.
Tout remembeur.
He sat in his mother's wheelchair and began to sing her song, the melody wrapped in an unbreakable longing. At that moment, a beautiful woman suddenly appeared behind him, startling him and causing his song to abruptly stop. The woman was the new neighbor, and needed help moving some things. Nick, after hearing this, started to get up to assist. His body reacted before his mind, but the woman decisively refused.
Her eyes full of unspoken pity.
Clearly, she had mistaken him for a disabled person. The words he wanted to explain were on the tip of his tongue, but when he saw such a beautiful girl, a strange ripple stirred in his heart. He chose to swallow those words. Maybe he should just embrace being a disabled person, and even deliberately knocked over a nearby box, curious to see what kind of expression she would show. After Sarah picked up the scattered items, she prepared to leave, but gently told Nick that if he ever had any difficulties, he could come to her place next door for help. Her words of concern felt like a feather brushing his heart. The next day, to pursue this beautiful girl, Nick went to her door. His heart was pounding like a drum in his chest, but just as he was about to press the doorbell, he realized he couldn't reach the high doorbell. He stared at it, gritting his teeth. In the end, he had to stand up to press it. Then,
Nick put on a pitiful expression,
with his eyes and eyebrows deliberately showing vulnerability. When Sarah opened the door, he immediately launched into an impromptu performance, saying he felt very lonely today, and asked if they could have lunch together, his voice carrying a barely perceptible hint of hope. Sarah kindly invited him into her room. Seeing his plan succeed, Nick smiled with satisfaction, a triumphant curve to his lips. Then they sat down leisurely at the dining table. Nick again used his refined manners to invite Sarah to have dinner with him, his fingertips gently brushing the tablecloth. But Sarah always made excuses to avoid the topic, like performing a roundabout dance. The atmosphere grew increasingly awkward. The air seemed to freeze into a transparent wall. Just as Sarah was about to get up to leave, Nick felt an impulse rise within him, the truth almost bursting from his throat. He wanted to tell Sarah that he wasn't actually disabled, but the remaining rationality pulled back that wild impulse. Instead, he said that although he was disabled, he was a billionaire, with hundreds of businesses in Italy and Europe, his tone intentionally boastful. Sarah was half skeptical, but she keenly sensed
the tone behind Nick's word.
So she invited him to visit her family's countryside home for the weekend. This suggestion hit a chord in Nick's heart, like fireworks exploding in his chest. Without hesitation, he accepted, afraid that 1 second too late would make him lose the chance. However, when Nick finally arrived at Sarah's home, he discovered her real intention was to introduce him to her sister. When Nick saw her sister for the first time, her fresh and pure beauty,
like the dawn breaking the morning mist,
made Nick's heart ripple in an instant. But the next second, the smile on his face gradually froze.
Like a frozen lake.
Watching Ella pull a wheelchair out of the car,
Nick sat shattered like a thunderclap,
dizzying him. He turned and looked around. Everyone's faces wore knowing smiles, as if watching a play that had already been written. At that moment, he realized that in this game of emotional hunting, he was the prey.